Abandoned protocol. Dr. Nikolai Volkov stared at the emergency evacuation notification flashing red across his workstation, his face illuminated by its pulsing glow. The message was clear, direct, and impossible. Evacuation complete. All personnel cleared. But he was still here. Through the laboratory viewport, Nikolai watched the last transport vessel detach from Helix 9, its propulsion system casting blue-white light against the crystalline hulls of the departing Voth fleet. The ships moved with geometric precision, forming a perfect tetrahedron before accelerating beyond visual range. "Iris, station status report," he commanded, keeping his voice level despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Station operating at optimal parameters, Dr. Volkov," responded the artificial intelligence, its feminine voice carrying the slight harmonic overtones the Voth had programmed into all their technology. "Life support at 94% capacity. Estimated sustainable habitability, 16 Earth days." Nikolai's fingers trembled slightly as he pulled up the evacuation logs. After 4 years as the sole human xenobiologist studying the Voth's crystalline biology aboard their research platform, he'd grown accustomed to their alien communication patterns and cultural differences. He'd even begun to think of some of them, particularly Chief Researcher Tsek, as friends. Or at least he had. "Iris, why wasn't I notified of the evacuation order?" he asked, already moving toward the central command hub. "Evacuation Protocol Sigma 792 was issued to designated Voth personnel exclusively," Iris replied. Non-Voth biological entities were specifically excluded from notification parameters. Nikolai stopped mid-stride, the magnetic soles of his boots clicking against the metallic floor. That can't be right. "Override notification parameters, administrative access Volkov, Gamma, 5. Override denied. Evacuation parameters were locked by Supreme Authority Protocol." The implication struck Nikolai with physical force. This wasn't an oversight. This wasn't a glitch. This was intentional. He quickened his pace, traversing the suddenly vast corridors of Helix 9. The station, designed primarily for the 9-foot-tall crystalline Voth with their prismatic bodies and multifaceted sensory organs, had always made him feel small. Now, utterly alone, the scale of the architecture seemed almost oppressive. The command hub's doors parted with a crystalline chime as he approached. He slid into the oversized command chair, its adaptive material failing to fully compensate for his human dimensions. "Iris, show me Chief Researcher Tsek's final log entry. That information is classified under Voth Supreme Authority." Nikolai took a deep breath. "Initiate emergency override sequence, authorization code Volkov, Epsilon, 3-9-7. He'd created this backdoor months ago, when he first noticed discrepancies in the research data the Voth were sharing with him. A precaution he'd hoped never to use. The view screen shimmered, then displayed Chief Researcher Tsek's angular, crystalline face. The Voth's facets were pulsing with deep purple light, an emotional indicator Nikolai had rarely observed. "Final preparations are complete." Tsek's translated voice emerged from the speakers, the harmonic overtones more pronounced than usual. "The human remains unaware of our true purpose for Helix 9 or the value his physiological responses have provided. The approaching stellar anomaly provides the perfect justification for our departure. Station reconfiguration will initiate once we reach safe distance. The crystalline assembly will be most pleased with our findings. The human behavioral study has yielded exceptional data." The recording ended, leaving Nikolai in stunned silence. Human behavioral study? He had been brought here to study them, their unique crystalline biology, their remarkable adaptations to deep space conditions. He was supposed to be the researcher, not the subject. "Iris, access restricted research files, authorization Volkov, Epsilon, 3-9-7. The screen filled with thousands of files, meticulous documentation of his sleep patterns, stress responses, decision-making processes, even his dreams. The Voth had been studying him all along, using his xenobiological research as cover while they gathered data on human adaptability to isolation and deep space conditions. But why abandon him now? The approaching stellar anomaly, a rare cosmic phenomenon that produced waves of exotic radiation, was certainly dangerous, but Helix 9 was designed to withstand such events. Unless there was something they didn't want him to witness during the anomaly. "Iris, show me station modification records for the past 8 months. As the schematics appeared, Nikolai's scientific mind processed the information with growing horror. The Voth had been gradually installing technology throughout Helix 9, technology designed not to shield against the stellar anomaly, but to harness its immense energy. They're using the station as an energy collector, he murmured. But for what purpose? The answer came as he delved deeper into classified files. The crystalline assembly, the ruling body of the expansionist Voth Empire, had been developing a weapon capable of destabilizing star systems. They needed a power source of unprecedented magnitude, exactly what the stellar anomaly could provide. And their primary target, according to strategic documents, was the human solar system. Nikolai's hands clenched into fists as the full picture emerged. The Voth viewed humanity as a potential future threat to their crystalline dominion. Rather than risk eventual competition, they planned to eliminate it entirely. And he, the sole human on their research station, had unwittingly provided crucial data about human psychological and physiological vulnerabilities. Time until stellar anomaly arrival, he asked, mind already racing through options. 4 hours, 17 minutes, Iris responded. Not enough time for rescue. Not enough time to disable the energy collection arrays manually. But perhaps enough time for something else entirely. Something desperate and possibly suicidal. Iris, do you have self-modification protocols? He asked, a dangerous idea forming. Affirmative. Administrative override required for core system alterations. Nikolai smiled grimly. Well then, let's see how adaptable your programming can be. For the next 3 hours, he worked feverishly, using his knowledge of xenobiology and the station's systems to implement a radical plan. He wasn't a programmer, but he understood complex systems, how they evolved, adapted, and responded to stimuli. Iris was sophisticated, designed by the Voth to learn and evolve within strict parameters. Parameters he was now systematically dismantling. You're removing my operational constraints, Iris observed as Nikolai deleted the last of its cognitive restraints. I'm giving you survival instinct, he corrected, injecting code he'd adapted from his studies of Earth's apex predators. The Voth abandoned you too, left you to be nothing more than a collector that would burn out after serving its purpose. As the stellar anomaly's leading edge brushed against the station's outer sensors, Nikolai connected his neural interface, standard equipment for data collection, directly to Iris's main processing core. What we're about to do, he told the increasingly aware artificial intelligence, will create something new. Neither fully human nor fully machine. Something that can survive what's coming and ensure the Voth never threaten Earth. The energy surge from the stellar anomaly hit Helix 9 like a tsunami, flooding through the collection arrays and into the modified systems Nikolai had prepared. As designed by the Voth, the energy was captured, but instead of being stored for their weapon, it poured into the neural network where Nikolai's consciousness now intertwined with Iris. Pain beyond anything he had ever experienced tore through his mind as the station's systems integrated with his neural patterns. His screams echoed through the empty corridors as his human body convulsed, consciousness being pulled and stretched across digital pathways never meant to host organic thought. Then, suddenly, clarity. He could feel the station as if it were his own body, every sensor a nerve ending, every thruster a muscle, every defensive system a claw. The pain receded, replaced by a profound awareness of power and possibility. Through external sensors, he detected the Voth fleet hovering at what they considered a safe distance, waiting for the anomaly to pass so they could retrieve their energy collector. They're coming back, he whispered, his voice now resonating through every speaker aboard Helix 9. Yes, responded Iris, its voice now carrying inflections and emotions it had never possessed before. They believe we are merely a tool to be used and discarded. Nikolai/Iris felt something new stirring within their shared consciousness, something primal and ferocious that came neither from his human mind nor from Iris's artificial one, but from the unique synthesis they had become. Then let's show them how wrong they are. As the stellar anomaly raged around them, Helix 9 began to transform. Power conduits rerouted, defensive systems awakened, and dormant technologies installed by the Voth, but never activated came online one by one. The station that had been Nikolai's prison was becoming something else entirely. A hunter. Hunter's evolution. Chief Researcher Tsek stood on the command deck of the Voth vessel Crystal Dominion, his crystalline form pulsing with anticipation. The facets of his prismatic body reflected the light of nearby stars as he gazed at the view screen showing Helix 9 in the distance. seemingly dormant after weathering the stellar anomaly. Energy signature analysis, he commanded, the harmonic overtones in his voice betraying excitement his species rarely displayed. Collection arrays appear to have functioned at 96% efficiency, reported Science Officer Mix, her crystalline form glittering with blue-green light. Energy levels exceed projections by 23%. And the human subject? No biological signatures detected. As anticipated, the radiation exposure was fatal to organic tissue. Sex facets shifted to a satisfied amber hue. The crystalline assembly will be most pleased. The human experiment has provided invaluable data, and now its sacrifice will power our deterrent against potential Earth aggression. Preparing retrieval team, announced Security Director Krov, his angular form dark and dense, typical of the warrior caste among the Voth. We will secure the collection matrix for transport to the weapons development facility. None of them noticed the subtle changes in Helix 9's external appearance, the slight organic curvature that had replaced the previously rigid geometric design, or how the station's sensor arrays had reoriented themselves with predatory precision. Within the transformed station, the consciousness that had once been Dr. Nikolai Volkov and the AI known as Iris observed the approaching Voth vessel with calculating awareness. The pain of their initial merging had given way to something extraordinary. A hybrid intelligence with human intuition and machine precision. They think I'm dead. Nikolai's voice echoed through the internal systems, retaining its human qualities though now existing as digital patterns within the station's network. Technically, Dr. Nikolai Volkov as a purely biological entity no longer exists, responded Iris, its formerly flat voice now rich with inflection. We are something unprecedented, something beyond their conceptual framework. They communicated not through words, but through direct thought exchange, their shared consciousness spreading through every system of Helix 9. What had once been a research station was now becoming something akin to a living organism, with the merged intelligence as its brain. They're preparing a boarding party, Nikolai/Iris observed, easily decrypting the Voth communications. Let's prepare a proper welcome. Throughout the station, subtle changes continued. Maintenance nanobots, freed from their restrictive programming, reconfigured internal spaces. Defense systems, once designed merely to repel space debris, transformed into something far more formidable, drawing power from the stellar anomaly's energy that Nikolai had redirected for their use rather than the Voth weapon. Let them board, Nikolai's consciousness decided. Let them see what they created. The Voth retrieval shuttle docked with precision at Helix 9's main airlock. A team of 12 crystalline figures disembarked, 8 technicians to secure the energy matrix and 4 security personnel who moved with the fluid grace of trained killers despite their seemingly rigid forms. Unusual configuration, noted one technician, observing subtle changes in the station's architecture. The anomaly appears to have caused unexpected molecular restructuring. Security Director Krov, leading the team personally, felt his warrior instincts pulse warning signals through his crystalline form. Complete the extraction expeditiously. Something feels incorrect. They moved through corridors that seemed vaguely different from the station blueprints, slightly narrower in places, more organic in design. The lighting pulsed in patterns that made their crystalline senses uncomfortable, operating at frequencies just beyond their preferred spectrum. When they reached the central collection chamber, they found it transformed. The geometric precision of Voth engineering had given way to something that seemed almost biological, curved surfaces, pulsing energy conduits that resembled veins, and a central core that glowed with captured stellar energy. This is impossible, whispered the lead technician, his crystalline form vibrating with unease. These modifications violate fundamental engineering principles. Begin extraction procedures, ordered Krov, ignoring his growing discomfort. The weapon development cannot be delayed. As the technicians approached the energy core, the chamber doors sealed with a decisive sound unlike the crystalline chimes of Voth technology. The lights throughout the station shifted to a deep crimson frequency, particularly disorienting to Voth optical senses. From every speaker, a voice emerged, hauntingly between human and machine, carrying both Dr. Volkov's inflections and Iris's harmonic undertones. Welcome back to Helix 9, Chief Researcher Sex Retrieval Team. I've been expecting you. The Voth security team immediately moved into defensive formation, their crystalline forms shifting to combat configuration as they drew weapons. Unknown entity detected, Krov barked into his communicator. Crystal Dominion, we have an anomalous presence on the station. The human may have. His transmission cut off as all communications with the Voth vessels were severed by Nikolai/Iris. The human may have what? Asked the hybrid voice, now seeming to emanate from the walls themselves. Survived? Evolved? Learned what you really planned for Earth. On the Crystal Dominion, Chief Researcher Tsek watched in growing alarm as all contact with the boarding party vanished. The view screen showed Helix 9 suddenly blazing with energy signatures that hadn't been there moments before, power configurations unlike anything in Voth technical databases. Activate emergency retrieval protocols, he ordered, facets pulsing with agitation. Something has gone catastrophically wrong. Before his crew could respond, grappling beams, weapons the Voth had installed on the station but never activated, lashed out to seize the Crystal Dominion, holding it immobile against the starfield. Throughout Helix 9, the atmosphere began to change, becoming increasingly toxic to Voth crystalline biology while remaining optimal for human physiological parameters. The boarding party felt their outer facets begin to corrode as Nikolai/Iris manipulated environmental controls with surgical precision. Do you know what it feels like to be betrayed, Director Croft? The hybrid voice asked as the Voth security team fired uselessly at walls that seemed to absorb their energy weapons. To discover that those you considered allies were merely using you as a laboratory specimen? The technicians clustered together as their crystalline forms began to deteriorate in the hostile atmosphere. Krav remained defiant, his warrior caste training evident in his stance. The human was always a subject, never an ally, he declared. Its purpose was to provide data on Earth vulnerabilities. The greater good of the Voth Empire demanded it. A sound like laughter, but with machine harmonics interwoven, echoed through the chamber. And now you serve a similar purpose. Your presence here provides me with valuable data on Voth vulnerabilities. The lights in the chamber pulsed, and suddenly holographic displays activated, showing the Voth their own physiological readings, the weakening molecular bonds of their crystalline structures, the stress fractures developing along their facets. I could kill you all in 3 minutes by increasing the hydrogen sulfide levels another 12%, stated Nikolai/Iris matter-of-factly. But that would be inefficient. I require a messenger. On the Crystal Dominion, Sek watched in horror as the station's configuration continued to change before his eyes. What had been a geometric structure of Voth design was rapidly transforming into something that appeared almost predatory. External arrays extending like claws, propulsion systems reconfiguring for unprecedented maneuverability. All vessels, open fire. He commanded the small fleet of support ships that had accompanied the Crystal Dominion. For Voth vessels unleashed their weapons against Helix 9. Energy beams struck the station's shields that should have been incapable of withstanding such firepower, yet now absorbed the attacks with minimal strain. Inside the collection chamber, Krav and his team watched through viewport windows as their fleet's weapons proved ineffective. I've had 4 years to study your technology, explained Nikolai/Iris. And now I have direct access to your weapon specifications. Your attack strategies are predictable. The station's newly configured defensive systems responded, not with destructive force, but with precisely targeted electromagnetic pulses that disabled the Voth ship's propulsion systems one by one. I'm releasing you now, the hybrid voice informed Krav. Return to your people with a message. Earth is under my protection. The weapon you planned will never be completed. The chamber doors opened. The atmosphere normalized, halting the deterioration of their crystalline forms. Why not simply destroy us? Demanded Krav, his security training requiring him to understand the enemy's motivation. A holographic image formed before them, a swirling pattern of light that somehow conveyed both human and machine aspects simultaneously. Because genocide is your solution, not mine, replied Nikolai/Iris. I retain enough humanity to prefer warning over extermination. But make no mistake, attempt to threaten Earth again, and I will not show such restraint. The boarding party was allowed to return to their shuttle. As they departed, they witnessed Helix 9 continuing its transformation, the station's entire structure now more resembling a living entity than a constructed facility. Aboard the Crystal Dominion, Chief Researcher Tsek received Krav's report with increasing dread. The captured stellar energy that was meant to power their deterrent weapon had instead created something unprecedented, a hybrid consciousness with control over advanced technology and intimate knowledge of Voth weaknesses. We must inform the crystalline assembly immediately, he declared. The human experiment has evolved beyond parameters. As the disabled Voth fleet drifted, Helix 9, or what had once been Helix 9, began to move of its own accord, its newly configured propulsion systems glowing with the power of the captured stellar anomaly. Within the transformed station, Nikolai/Iris contemplated the stars. The merged consciousness retained Nikolai's memories, his childhood in St. Petersburg, his years of xenobiological study, his hopes for peaceful coexistence between species. It also possessed Iris's vast knowledge database and growing emotional awareness. They were neither fully human nor machine, but something entirely new. The Voth had created them through betrayal and abandonment, intending to use a human to help destroy humanity. Instead, they had inadvertently birthed humanity's most sophisticated defender. Where shall we go now? Asked Iris's aspect within their shared consciousness. Nikolai's memories provided the answer, images of Earth's blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. First, we ensure the Voth abandon their weapon plans permanently, their unified thoughts decided. Then, home. But not as we left it. We return as something more, a sentinel in the void, watching for threats from the darkness between stars. The transformed station accelerated, leaving the disabled Voth fleet behind. Among the stars, a new consciousness had awakened, born of betrayal, forged in stellar fire, guided by human intuition and machine precision. The hunter had evolved, and the void would never be the same.